My college roommate asked to crash on my couch for a few days while he looked for an apartment. 2 months later, he was still there. The breaking point wasn't him eating all my food or never cleaning. It was when I came home to find he had invited 3 strangers over for a jam session. They were smoking cigarettes inside my non-smoking apartment, ashing into my favourite mugs. When I told them to get out, he had the audacity to tell me to chill out because I was stifling their creative energy. I changed the locks the next day. My cousin stayed with us for a week. She refused to flush the toilet because she claimed the noise disturbed her aura. By day 3, the guest bathroom was a hazardous zone. When we confronted her, she told us we were being oppressive and that natural functions shouldn't be shamed. My husband eventually had to go in there with a mask on to clean it because she refused. We realized later she had also been wiping her makeup off with our expensive decorative hand towels, leaving them permanently stained black and orange. I let a friend stay in my spare room. I work from home, so I need quiet during the day. She would wake up at noon, blast music while cooking pungent fish dishes, and leave every single pot and pan dirty in the sink. One day, I had a Zoom meeting with a major client. She walked into the background of my video wearing only a towel and started screaming at her boyfriend on the phone. I lost the client. She said it wasn't her fault because I should have warned her that I was working in my own office. A friend of a friend needed a place to stay for a weekend convention. He showed up with a Great Dane he didn't mention. I have 2 cats. He said, "Don't worry, he's friendly." The dog proceeded to terrorize my cats, chew the corner of my wooden coffee table, and had massive accidents on the carpet, which the guy covered up with a throw rug instead of cleaning. When I kicked him out, he demanded I pay for his hotel because I had reneged on the agreement. My sister-in-law came to help with the baby, but ended up treating our house like a hotel. She would buzz us from the living room on the baby monitor to ask us to bring her snacks while we were trying to sleep. She also adjusted the thermostat to 80 degrees in the middle of winter because she runs cold, resulting in a gas bill that was triple our usual amount. When she finally left, we found a pile of dirty diapers she had been hoarding under the guest bed because she was too lazy to walk to the trash can. We had a guy stay who literally never left the couch. For 5 days straight. He slept there, ate there, and watched TV there. We would wake up for work, he was on the couch. We came home, he was on the couch. The worst part was that he started treating us like the staff. He asked, "What's for dinner?" the second we walked in the door. One night we didn't cook and ordered takeout for just ourselves, and he threw a tantrum saying it was rude to eat in front of a guest without offering. I had a friend stay over who decided to reorganize my kitchen while I was at work as a thank you. It wasn't a thank you. She threw away all my spices because she said they were expired and they weren't, and moved my plates to a shelf I literally couldn't reach without a ladder. She also threw out my grandmother's cast iron skillet because she couldn't scrub the black stuff off and thought it was dirty. I have never screamed so loud in my life. She cried and said I was ungrateful. My brother stayed with me and drank my entire liquor cabinet dry. I had a collection of rare whiskies that I'd been saving for years. I came home to find empty bottles everywhere. To hide it, he had filled the expensive bottles back up with water and weak tea to make them look full. I poured a glass for a special occasion weeks later and tasted watery garbage. He denied it until I showed him the security camera footage from the living room. We hosted a friend who turned out to be a bath person. She would take 3-hour baths every single evening, using up every drop of hot water in the house. Not only that, she used my expensive imported shampoos as bubble bath. I went to wash my hair and found a $60 bottle empty after 3 days. She said, "Oh, it didn't bubble very well. You should buy better soap." She left a ring of grime around the tub that took industrial cleaner to remove. I let a co-worker stay for a weekend while his house was being fumigated. On Sunday night, he asked if he could do a load of laundry. I said sure. He proceeded to wash his grease-covered mechanic work clothes with my delicate white linens. Everything I owned turned a dingy grey. Then he overloaded the dryer so badly the belt snapped. He packed up his clean clothes and left without even offering to pay for the repair, saying, "Your machine was old anyway." Jean. A childhood friend visited and became obsessed with our smart home devices. She would change the lighting colours to strobing disco effects at 2 a.m. and blast heavy metal through the whole house speakers as a prank. She also ordered movies on our Prime account without asking. We woke up to $200 worth of rental charges. When I asked her for the money, she laughed and said, "You guys are rich? Why are you being so cheap about a few movies?" We gave a guest the spare key so he could come and go. 2 days after he was supposed to leave, he was still there. I came home to find a locksmith changing the deadbolt. The guest had lost the key I gave him and, instead of calling me, hired a locksmith to drill out my lock and install a new one so he could get back in to grab his charger. He expected me to pay the locksmith because your key was too slippery. My aunt came to visit and decided my diet wasn't healthy enough. She went through my pantry and threw away all the processed foods, chips, cookies, pasta, canned soups, everything. Then she presented me with a bill for $300 for the organic whole foods she replaced them with. She bought ingredients I have no idea how to cook. I told her to take her kale and get out. She told the whole family I was abusing my body and disrespecting her. I had a guest who clogged the toilet on the first night. Instead of telling us or using the plunger right next to the toilet, he just kept flushing. It overflowed, flooded the bathroom, and leaked through the ceiling into the kitchen below. He just closed the door and went to sleep in the guest room. We found the disaster in the morning when water started dripping onto the breakfast table. He said, "Oh yeah, the toilet acted weird last night." My friend brought her 2 kids to stay for a relaxing weekend. She meant relaxing for her. She essentially checked out and let her kids run wild. They drew on my walls with permanent marker, smashed a vase, and poured juice into my laptop keyboard. When I freaked out, she said, "They're just expressing themselves, don't be such a tyrant." She refused to discipline them or pay for the damage. We had a guy stay who was an aspiring crypto bro. He set up a mining rig in our guest room without asking. I noticed our electricity bill spiked and the room was incredibly hot. The noise from the fans was deafening 24/7. He was siphoning massive amounts of power. When I told him to turn it off, he tried to pitch me on investing in his coin. I unplugged his rig and put it on the front porch. A friend needed a place to crash after a breakup. She spent the entire week stalking her ex on social media from my living room TV. She would cry at the screen at all hours. She also started wearing my clothes without asking because she didn't pack enough. I found her wearing my favourite silk blouse while eating spaghetti. Of course, she spilled sauce on it and tried to hide it in the bottom of the hamper. We had a couple stay with us who fought constantly. Awkward, screaming matches in front of us at dinner, then, inevitably, the loud make-up noises in the guest room with thin walls. It made the whole house uncomfortable. One morning, the girlfriend threw a plate at the boyfriend, and it shattered against my backsplash. They didn't even clean it up. They just stormed out to get air and left us with the shards. I let my cousin stay for a job interview. He didn't get the job, but he didn't leave. He started having his mail forwarded to my house. That's when I knew he was trying to establish residency. I caught him telling a girl on the phone that it was his place, and I was just his roommate. I had to legally evict him. He stole my toaster and my blender when he finally left. A friend stayed over and decided to dye her hair bright red in my white porcelain sink. It looked like a crime scene. There was red dye splattered on the mirror, the walls, the rug, and the towels. The sink was permanently stained pink. She just laughed and said, "Whoops, Hair dye is so messy, right? She didn't lift a finger to scrub it. My husband's army buddy stayed with us. He was a smoker, but promised to smoke outside. I came home early to find him sitting in the living room recliner, smoking with the window cracked 1 inch. The whole house smelled like an ashtray. He had been putting his cigarettes out in my potted plants, killing 3 of them. He said it was too cold outside, even though it was 60 degrees. I had a guest who was incredibly nosy. I have a home office where I keep personal files. I walked in on him going through my desk drawers, looking at my bank statements. He jumped and tried to say he was looking for a pen. A pen in a filing cabinet folder marked taxes. I kicked him out immediately. He told our friends I was paranoid and hiding something. A vegan friend stayed with us. I went out of my way to cook vegan meals for her. Late one night, I heard noises in the kitchen. I found her eating my leftover roast chicken straight out of the fridge, with her hands, drunk. The next morning, she lectured me about the morality of eating meat. When I mentioned the chicken, she denied it and said I must have sleepwalked and eaten it myself. We had a guest who refused to use coasters. I have nice wood furniture. He would leave sweating glasses of ice water everywhere. There were white rings all over the coffee table and the nightstand. When I asked him to use a coaster, he said, "Man, you're so uptight about your stuff." It ruined the finish on a table I inherited from my grandfather. I allowed a friend to bring her well-behaved parrot. The bird shrieked at 100 decibels every time the sun came up. It also chewed through the blinds in the guest room and pooped on the headboard. She thought it was hilarious and cute. "Oh look, Polly is remodeling." I was not amused. She didn't offer a dime for the blinds. A guest asked to borrow my car to go to the store real quick. He was gone for 6 hours. He came back with the tank empty, it was full when he left, and a new dent in the bumper. He claimed the dent was already there, it wasn't, and that he forgot to get gas. Later I got a ticket in the mail for running a red light at an intersection 50 miles away from the store he said he was going to. My sister stayed with us and turned the living room into a drying rack for her delicates. There were bras and underwear draped over every lamp, chair, and door handle. We had neighbours coming over for dinner, and she refused to move them because they weren't dry yet. It was mortifying explaining to my boss why there was a thong on the lampshade. We had a guy who was obsessed with saving water. He adopted a policy of, if it's yellow, let it mellow in our guest bathroom. The problem was, he was staying for 2 weeks and seemingly never flushed. The bathroom smelled like a portable toilet at a music festival. He got offended when we told him to flush, saying we were destroying the planet. I had a friend stay who was a compulsive borrower. "Can I borrow your charger, your hairdryer, your socks?" By the end of the week, half my stuff was in her suitcase. When she was packing to leave, I had to essentially search her bag to get my things back. She had my favourite hoodie packed away and acted surprised. "Oh, how did that get in there?" We hosted a relative who decided to fix a leaky faucet I mentioned. He had no plumbing experience. He dismantled the entire sink, stripped the pipes, and couldn't put it back together. He left the water main off for the whole house while he went out to find parts and didn't come back for 6 hours. We had to call an emergency plumber on a Sunday. I let a friend stay who was sick with just allergies. It wasn't allergies, it was the flu. She coughed all over the house without covering her mouth, used our hand towels, and touched everything. My entire family, including my 6-month-old baby, got violently ill. She texted me later saying, "Thanks for the stay. Hope you guys didn't catch my bug, LOL." My old roommate came to visit and brought his new girlfriend. They treated my apartment like a love nest. They left used protection on the bedside table and empty lube bottles on the floor. I was absolutely disgusted. They didn't even have the shame to throw it away before checking out. I had to clean the room with gloves and bleach. A guest decided to do some deep frying as a midnight snack. He filled a pot with oil and fried frozen burritos. He fell asleep while it was cooling, and the cat knocked it over. 5 liters of vegetable oil soaked into the kitchen hardwood floors and ran under the cabinets. The house smelled like a fast food joint for months, and the floorboards warped.